Have you ever noticed that some improvement efforts seem to take on a life of their own? People start talking about them, others want to get involved, new ideas start showing up. The improvement begins to spread beyond what you imagined, and people begin solving problems you didn't even ask them to solve. It almost feels like the improvement has its own momentum. Then there are the other projects, the ones where every single meeting feels like you're dragging a wagon uphill. Every action requires another reminder. Every conversation feels like convincing. Every little success disappears before anyone notices. So, what's the difference? It's not that one team is motivated and the other isn't. It's not that one leader is charismatic and the other isn't. It's not even that one idea is better than the other. The difference is momentum. Today, we're wrapping up the Chain Shaper series with the final characteristic: energize positive momentum. Sustainable change doesn't happen because you push harder, it happens because people start pulling with you. Welcome to Thoughts on Change, the podcast about the messy, political, emotional, deeply human side of leading change. I'm Kelly, and I believe anyone can implement lead tools until they actually have to get people to use them. Around here, we talk about how to move culture, how to build credibility, and how to influence without bulldozing. Basically, how to herd humans without losing your mind. When people hear the word energize, they often picture someone standing in front of the room giving an inspiring speech. That's not what I'm talking about. You don't have to become the loudest person in the room. And in fact, that may hurt your cause. Energizing momentum isn't always about excitement. It isn't always about inspiration. It's about creating conditions where people want to keep moving and where this desire to keep moving is bigger than any drag that they experience. So let's actually look at the physics of momentum for a moment. Momentum is mass times velocity. So the heavier something is, and the greater its velocity, the more momentum it will have. And the harder it is to slow down. Now, in change, we're more often than not working to start moving from a standstill, or we're trying to redirect the movement of a team or organization. So for us, we need to think about changing momentum. And a change in momentum is equal to mass times the change in velocity. And think of mass here as the weight of the organization's systems and structures. Velocity is then the rate that things improve or degrade. And this means that if the organization is heavy with systems and structure that make it difficult to shift how processes work, then your rate of change will be slower. But it also means that if you can align the weight of the systems and structure to the direction of the change, it will be harder to stop once it gets started. Right? Think about pushing a car. The hardest part isn't keeping it moving. The hardest part is getting it moving. Once the wheels begin turning, it takes much less effort. Change works exactly the same way. Our job isn't to push forever. Our job is to help people experience enough progress that they start pushing themselves. And then to prevent anything from stopping the wheels. That means we need to stop asking, how do I motivate people? And start asking, what's making it hard for people to move? Because here's something I've learned. People usually don't need more motivation. They need less friction. And if you've listened to the series, you've probably noticed a theme, right? Resistance isn't the enemy. People aren't the enemy. The business environment isn't the enemy. Most of the time, people want to do good work. They want to succeed. They want to solve problems. But something gets in their way. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's confusion. Sometimes priorities are competing. Sometimes they don't know how. Sometimes they don't believe they'll be successful. Sometimes They simply don't see progress and they get discouraged and stop. So, our job as change shapers is to remove enough of that friction that momentum can begin and sustain. And one of the biggest mistakes I made early in my career was believing people would get excited by a big vision. Sometimes they did, but most of the time, they wanted to know if today was going to be any better than yesterday. And that's why small wins matter so much. Small wins aren't small because they're unimportant. They're small because they're believable. When someone experiences one improvement, they become more willing to try another. And then another. And then another. And momentum grows through this experienced evidence, not through enthusiasm. This is one of the reasons I love the improvement kata so much. The improvement kata isn't about giant breakthroughs. It's about making progress and learning visible one small experiment at a time. This helps people see that they're getting better. And that is incredibly energizing. And here's another trap I see. We are very good at celebrating outcomes, but we rarely celebrate learning. Think about that for a second. Someone tries something new. It doesn't work. They discover something important about the process or the system or the people. And this means they eliminate an assumption and they prevent the organization from making an expensive mistake. And what happens? Silence. No celebration, no recognition, nothing. What message does that send? It says only successful experiments and changes matter. And then we wonder why nobody wants to try anything new. Instead, what if we celebrate the learning? Celebrate curiosity, celebrate trying something, celebrate the courage to test an idea. Because learning and adapting is what creates long-term improvement, and improvement creates results, not the other way around. And here's something that might sting a little for all of us. Your attitude toward change is contagious. So is your frustration and your cynicism and your hope. People watch us far more than they listen to us. So if we spend every day talking about how leadership doesn't care, people will believe leadership doesn't care. And if we constantly complain about resistance, people start seeing resistance everywhere. But if we celebrate progress, if we point out wins, if we acknowledge people who are trying, if we highlight learning, that spreads too. Now, this doesn't mean pretending everything is wonderful. Please don't do that. People can smell fake positivity a mile away. Instead, acknowledge reality, then intentionally shine a light on the progress. Both can be true. The work is hard, and we're making progress. Now, before we wrap up the series, I want to leave you with something. When I first started in continuous improvement, I thought my job was to improve processes. Then I thought my job was to solve problems. Then I thought my job was to implement lean. And one morning while I was driving to work, I had this feeling of dread sink into me. And I thought, what am I going to have to do today to get one scrap of improvement? And I actually considered if I should stop, if I should go back to engineering or some other function. And then I wondered, how can anybody do this job without burning out? And that began my search for a better way to lead change. And now I don't believe our job is to improve processes or solve problems or implement lean even. I think our job is much simpler. Our job is to make it easier for people to succeed. That's really what this entire Change Shaper framework is about. Connecting, helping, advocating, navigating, getting to the right people, energizing momentum. Every one of these characteristics exists to make success easier for the people around us. And when we focus on making success easier, the business gets better, the culture gets better, And honestly, our jobs become a whole lot more fun too. So coming back to you, think about the change effort you're leading right now and ask yourself, where is momentum already happening? And where does work still feel heavy? What friction can I remove? What small win can I make visible this week? Who needs encouragement? Who needs clarity? Who simply needs to experience one success? And remember, you don't have to create all of the energy. Sometimes you simply need to stop draining it. So, as you head back into your work, here are some things to consider. Where am I unintentionally creating friction? What progress have I forgotten to celebrate? Am I recognizing learning as much as outcomes? How am I influencing the energy of my team? And if someone followed my example, would they become more energized or more exhausted? Over the last 6 episodes, we've built the Change Shaper framework together, connecting with curiosity and compassion, helping with intention, advocating for what really matters, navigating the business environment, getting to the right people, and now energizing positive momentum. And do you notice something? None of these are lean tools. None of them are Six Sigma tools. None of them are project management tools. These are human skills. Change has never really been about the tools. It's always been about the people. If you've been listening to this since the beginning of this series, thank you. My hope isn't that you memorize this framework. My hope is that you begin seeing change differently, that you spend less time fighting people and more time helping them move, because that's what change shapers do. They don't force change, they shape it. And I would love to hear how you are shaping change. So please share your story, share your struggles, share your victories, and most importantly, share your learnings. You can email me at kelly@kellymallory.com or message me on LinkedIn or Instagram. And stay tuned for future episodes of Thoughts on Change, because there is so much more to explore about this messy, beautiful human side of change. I'll see you next time. That's a wrap for this episode of Thoughts on Change. If you're also out there trying to move culture instead of just installing tools, hit subscribe and share this with a fellow CI warrior. And remember, progress beats perfection, curiosity beats control, and culture beats everything. See you next time.